The latest issue of Absolute Batman came out this week, and it picks up about a month after the explosive conclusion of the first storyline, The Zoo. For those that haven't been keeping up, the Absolute Universe was created by the evil new god Darkseid, and it is permeated with his negative energy. What this means is that our heroes are at a disadvantage from the outset, in an overtly cruel and hostile universe. The Absolute Batman, for instance, isn't a wealthy industrialist. He's a working-class civil engineer with virtually none of the resources that we come to associate with Batman. No Batcave, no rocket-powered car, no super Batcomputer. But that doesn't mean he's ineffective. In his first storyline, we were introduced to this version of Gotham City, as it was overrun by Black Mask's party animals, whose sole objective was to cause chaos and destruction. We'd come to learn that this was all done in order to allow a massive super prison to be built just outside of Gotham. Ark M, get it? So that the wealthy elites could further profit from people's misery. Batman exposed Black Mask in his scheme, but really all it did was accelerate their plans, as we learn in this issue. So here we are, a month later. Mayor Gordon has been replaced by Hamilton Hill, who had been backed by Black Mask and his cohorts, let's not forget. Gotham is under martial law with tight curfews, and the police are out in force armed with new equipment, including futuristic police blimps patrolling the sky, a la Batman the Animated Series. Scott Snyder has clearly answered my prayers. And all construction projects have ground to a halt, except for Ark M. While this story serves as the introduction of the Absolute version of Mr. Freeze, most of this issue is about continuing the Ark M plot. Batman wants to get a closer look at the facility and turns to a childhood friend to forge him some identity papers that would get him in. And that friend is none other than Mitchell Matches Malone. In the mainline comics, Matches Malone was an alias Batman used, although there had been various stories over the years about where the identity came from. Sometimes he's entirely fictional, a criminal whose reputation Batman had spent years building in secret in order to gather intel on Gotham's underworld. Sometimes Malone was a real person that resembled Batman, and Batman took his place while he was incarcerated. And other times, Batman was indirectly responsible for his death, and Batman assumed his identity. Here, he is a very real person, someone that also grew up in Crime Alley, and he is a resource that Batman can use. However, by getting involved in Batman's investigation, Matches is killed by a mysterious illness that causes him to bleed from every orifice he has, and a few others, dropping dead in his tracks. Batman had only asked for a fake ID, but Matches went one step further, getting on the Ark M construction crew himself and snooping around. Batman hadn't asked him to do this. In fact, it was the exact opposite of what he had requested, but Batman still feels responsible for his friend's death. The rest of his childhood friends, Oswald Cobblepot, Harvey Dent, Waylon Jones and Edward Nygma, hold a match-lit vigil for Matches and take the opportunity to confront Batman about his actions. Remember that in the last issue, Batman had revealed his secret identity to his friends in order to help him defeat Black Mask, although I have to suspect that Batman only told them because he didn't plan on surviving the encounter. Batman's friends are aware that he had been using them to continue his mission, but they don't seem to hold it against him. Instead, they seem to want to help him investigate what happened to Matches, but Batman shuts them out. He's clearly worried that involving any of them would lead to their deaths too, but they pointedly note that without their help, he will probably die. In fact, the way he's living now, he's already dead. While Matches had died before he could tell Batman what was going on, Batman was able to piece some things together by looking at Matches' phone. He had filmed a short video that suggested that the prison was already at least partially operational, and had a list of researchers: Langstrom, Isley, Strange, and Freeze. These are names that will be immediately familiar to Batman fans: Kirk Langstrom, the Man-Bat, Pamela Isley, Poison Ivy, Hugo Strange, Professor Hugo Strange, and Victor Freeze, Mr. Freeze. Freeze is the only one with a connection to Gotham City, so Batman pays him a visit, posing as a bureaucrat looking into why Freeze's company V-Corps is using so much electricity. And Freeze is very forthcoming. Here, Victor Freeze is the son of Victor and Nora Freeze, who were cryogenics experts. Their company specializes in freezing deathly ill people until a cure for their conditions can be found. They had a number of clients, hence the power drain, including Mr. and Mrs. Freeze. Their son Victor is the director of the company, and, like the Hair Club for Men, he was also a client at one point. Victor was deathly ill, and his parents froze him until they could find a cure. But when they revived him, he was changed. This Mr. Freeze isn't a mournful zombie snowman trapped forever in a containment suit. Instead, he's more like a werewolf, I suppose. Except he changes from a normal human being into some hideous ice beast with protruding spine, jagged teeth and gangly limbs. And he doesn't welcome the prying eyes of Batman. Now, this isn't the first time that writer Scott Snyder has had a go at redefining Mr. Freeze's origin. Originally, Mr. Freeze was a generic ice-themed thief, but was reimagined in the 1990s in Batman the Animated Series as a tragic figure mourning his deceased wife and lost humanity. His origin was tied to the actions of a heartless industrialist, Ferris Boyle, who interrupted Victor's efforts to freeze Nora, and in the process ruined both Victor and Nora's lives. Freeze claimed to be dead to emotion, but in reality he was frozen in a traumatized state, with limited emotional range. In the late 1990s, this take on the character wound up being adopted by the mainline comic books as well, but when DC's continuity was reset in 2011 as part of the New 52 line of comics, Scott Snyder took the reins of Batman and wanted to shake things up. Yes, the same Scott Snyder that writes Absolute Batman. He teamed up with James Tynion IV to reframe Freeze's origin. Instead of being a man who mourned his deathly ill wife who was frozen in suspended animation, he was a creepy stalker that was obsessed with a woman that had been frozen decades ago. He deluded himself into thinking that she was his wife and that she loved him. That in itself isn't an issue in my mind, but one less popular aspect was the removal of Ferris Boyle. Instead, the heartless industrialist responsible for his transformation was Bruce Wayne. Now, I always say that I'm very much in favour of changing things up and introducing new versions of characters, but I didn't care for this change because it replaced everything that had come before it. I get the thought process though. They wanted to make Mr. Freeze an actual villain, an inherently bad person that would have motivation beyond just trying to save Nora, but this fell flat for me. And it didn't last long, as eventually DC went back to the status quo of having Nora being Victor's cryogenically frozen wife. But then they thawed her out and turned her into another supervillain named Mrs. Freeze, and yeah, I wasn't a fan of that either. Anyway, this has been a big tangent, but the reason I bring it up is because it's an example of a change to a character that I think was way worse than what had come before, and suspect that most people agree, hence why the change didn't stick. Now, there may be some people reading this comic having a similar reaction, incredulous that Snyder would tinker with Mr. Freeze's origin, turning him into Frosty the Slender Man. But the important thing to remember is that the Absolute line is entirely separate, so this doesn't replace anything. Hell, you could argue that Snyder is having his cake and eating it by freezing Victor Sr. and Nora, while Victor Jr. awaits a cure for whatever ailed them, although he seems to suggest that they had died and they were frozen on the off chance that a cure for death is discovered, but I might have just misunderstood that scene. The important thing is that Victor Jr. isn't a tragic figure driven by loss and heartache, he's a self-described monster. The process he endured to save his life was agonizing, and the bacteria in the ice has changed him. I think that this is entirely appropriate for a universe born of cruelty, where heroes are stifled and even the coldest hearts can burn with pain. This isn't Victor Freeze, the tragic widower, this is something else, a frozen beast in a godless world. And in the Absolute universe, where hope is rationed and mercy is extinct, maybe that is the most chilling part of all. Absolute Batman number 7 is available now from all good comic shops. If you are based in the UK and don't have a comic shop near you, then you might want to use my affiliate link with the UK's biggest comic book retailer, Forbidden Planet. I have included a link in the pinned comment on this video. Alternatively, if the idea of hoarding a collection of comic books fills you with dread, I am getting perilously close to filling up our storage unit. You may want to try getting a digital copy of the issue from Amazon. I also have an affiliate link with them, which you could use to help my channel out. This is also included in the pinned comment. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to all of you that have joined me over on this new channel. Obviously, my main channel will continue with videos looking at characters seen in the DC cartoons, but I appreciate all of you coming over to this new channel to talk specifically about comic books. To those that have read the issue, what did you think? How about the artwork of Marcos Martin, who's filling in for 2 issues? Do you think that Bruce's friends will take no for an answer, or will they insert himself into his crusade? And now that he's no longer mayor, what's left for Jim Gordon? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Next time. Well, the next Absolute comic that is due to be released is the 2nd issue of Absolute Flash. When we last saw our teen hero, he was being pursued by Captain Boomerang, Trickster, Golden Glider and Captain Cold, who are all part of an elite military strike team. This issue promises to continue that chase. Hope to see you then.